Hey everybody, so this is a 84 Js550 Kawasaki jet ski that I was sold a while back, and I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't run, and I spent a lot of time online trying to find videos that will illustrate the plumbing or routing of the fuel lines, etc. It got a little bit deeper than that when I finally tore into it and figured out what's wrong. So I drew a little schematic here for anybody that's struggling.
Okay, so forgive the crudeness of this drawing, but it should help. So here's your on. Notice it's shorter of a pickup. Here's your reserve pickup, 2 open ports. Your on or reserve, both are under vacuum and pull fuel to your reserve on switch that's located on the panel at your knees if you were kneeling on the ski and riding it. Okay, whichever way you have it selected, it will then feed fuel this direction. This is your feed line, comes up here and goes in to your solenoid. Before it does, on my particular ski, I've got it teed in with small, I don't know what it is, 1/8 inch tubing that goes to my primer plunger to squirt fuel into the carburetor to get it to start. Instead of a choke, we squirt a little shot of fuel in there and it starts. Goes into the solenoid, always flows through the solenoid with fuel. That fuel comes around and goes into your feed of your BN carburetor, or most carburetors. Okay, so that's the main fuel in. In order for this carburetor to work, you should, down at the bottom of your engine, this is your engine here, you should have a port that has a 1/4 inch tube, and that's your pulse line. So it's actually like vacuum from the engine that causes the pump to draw fuel in under vacuum. And then out of that carburetor is your return line. On the left hand side near the top is your return line. The solenoid, when it over revs, the electronic control module or box sends, it will activate this solenoid and send fuel up to the side of the carburetor, one of the small ports up top, to flood the carburetor so that you don't over rev if the ski comes out of the water. Here's your vent and your check valve.
Off of this is our fuel tank up here. On your fuel tank, you have a short pickup, a long pickup, and 2 open ports. Your short pickup is your on, which is this one. Your long pickup is your reserve, so there would be a little bit more fuel down in the tank for it to pull from. And then return line and vent line are just 2 holes in the lid. The other 2 holes, they don't go anywhere. You'll see them right here, just there, and it doesn't matter which one's which. Okay, so our on plumbing runs off of the shorter pickup and comes around and goes to our reserve and on switch, which is here, and it gets mounted right here, right in here, right? So this is labeled on and reserve. Whichever way you have the dial, you're going to turn that valve. This one would be in the reserve position, so, or let's just go to the on position. So it'll pull the fuel in and then it'll send it out on here. So if this is leaking, because what we're doing is pulling the fuel under vacuum, right? So if there's a leak, it's much like having a soda with a straw and the straw has a crack in it and you go to suck soda, what's gonna happen? You're gonna draw air bubbles in. Or I'm in the swimming pool industry, same thing on the suction side of a pump. If you have an air leak, you're not gonna be able to suck under vacuum the liquid that you're trying to draw in. So I had to make sure that this was good. So I plug one of these ports, I blow through it, and it should be sealed. And this is good. I tested the integrity of this valve, it is functional. So out of that valve, whether it's selected on reserve or on, we have our main feed line. On the main feed line, I'm gonna have a T that runs to my primer. My primer is this plunger here, and when you pull it and push it, these little tubes will pump a little spurt of fuel into the carburetor to get it to start on initial firing. Okay, so here's our feed line, and it runs up, and our feed goes to the solenoid, which in the end, to cut to the chase, this was my problem. This solenoid is known as a rev limiter. And the purpose of it is so that if the ski comes out of the water and the RPMs increase and it's cavitating or not pulling air, such as if you were jumping or something, you could over rev and blow the engine. It would run really lean at that moment and it could seize, okay? So what this does is at high RPM, it opens a solenoid here. And since the main feed fuel is flowing through it all the time, it will open the solenoid and dump fuel into the carburetor, flooding the carburetor, causing it to bog. So you can't over rev and blow your engine when you're in the air. That is the purpose of this. These are discontinued, they're hard to find. There are a few guys on eBay still selling them. You can find used ones as well. And
4 minutes, bro.
Okay, well, that's how it's gonna go. So what I discovered is on this line here, I'll show you a clip, but these wires off of this solenoid were actually frayed right under this nut, and they were touching, and they caused this solenoid to short. So I have to replace this solenoid. That is the problem. I cannot blow air or liquid through this solenoid. It's faulty, and that's ultimately the issue. Now, out of that solenoid, it goes straight into the carburetor right here. Here's your inlet to a carburetor. This is on the, what is it? I think it's a BN carburetor. I've rebuilt this carburetor 12 times thinking I did it wrong. Of course, the engine fires if I squirt gas or starting fluid in there. So here we are coming off of our solenoid. It loops back and it goes into the carburetor, okay? Out of the carburetor right here is your return. There's your return. That line runs around and goes to your return of the tank, okay? And then your vent is the last thing, and your vent goes up the steering boom, but not before it runs through a check valve. And sorry, I've misplaced that at the moment, but you have to have a check valve on it right before it exits and goes up the boom. And that's how you plumb the ski. Hopefully I'll be able to add a video to this of the ski running to confirm that I am correct. Thank you.
Oh, you're supposed to smile at the end. It's teeth.